introduced it school-wide, and then she's been looking for kids that are modeling it during recess that she can come back and show as examples of how the kids are owning this and, learning to work through things with each other. And then the last thing are the achievement badges. They're like the little brag tags or backpack tags that we have school-wide ones and we have the grade level ones. So the school-wide ones, they earned one at the beginning of the year when all of the classes could show that they had learned the cool tools or the JB way for, how we are in the hallway, how we're, acting in each part of the building. There's one for the working together with the buddies. Each grade level has chosen an academic one. Like in second grade, we have fact fluency for addition and subtraction facts within 20. It's a way of, again, getting the kids to work together, bringing the families in so that they know what some of those pieces are and what we really want them working on with us at home, and that all of the kids are working towards a similar goal.
Nicely done.
Anything else?
No. Oh, I think we skipped one. Yes. So reflecting on last year, our first trimester instructional rounds and CHAMPS rounds, when we looked at our data, showed that when we compare this fall to last fall, we're actually starting out in a better place. And so that was really exciting. That was a big celebration for us. When we talked about the success criteria and students being able to say, that's why I can tell you how, they couldn't do that last fall. And the same thing with CHAMPS, all of our data across the board was higher than it was last fall. Regulation stations, you might remember me talking about that last year. That was one of our action steps to support belonging last year. So this time last year, they didn't exist. They weren't in the classrooms. We brought them on board in the middle of last year, and it's been a success to have students using them now. Like they're in every single space. They go use them on their own. When I'm calling and partnering with parents, they're saying, oh yeah, he's been telling me he's been using that regulation station. It's really helping him to, calm down or refocus. So those are in place and being used, and that's a celebration when we think about where we were last year. Our belonging data, when we looked at our belonging data, and I compared again apples to apples, I went to last fall compared to this fall. We're starting out a little bit stronger, so that was a celebration. And then as Jen shared, we had a really strong launch with our theme of belonging, and we're going to continue to focus in on this in second and third trimester, and I'll be excited to share some more things when we come back next time about some of the things we did with that. Our final slide tonight, you asked us to go out and get some information about how is the impact of cell phones in our schools and in our classrooms. So we follow the board policy and student handbook that's already up there, and all electronic devices are expected to be turned off and put away. Students should not be using any devices to communicate while at school. At JB Nelson, I sent out a Google survey. I worked with my BEA. We sent one out to the entire staff. And when I looked at the data, there was a range. There were quite a few staff members who have had 0 conversations. And then there were a couple staff members who maybe have had 1 to 2 this whole school year. We can approximate 60 days-ish we've been in school. And then we have some people who say 1 to 2 times a day I'm talking with students. But it's watches. It's not the cell phones in our building, it's smart watches, and it's them texting their parents. So I haven't had office discipline referrals as of yet. We've had a couple conversations, and then I already shared what staff shared. I know there's a more official survey coming, but that's what we had at this point. And that is all we've got. I'm not Rotolo. We're going to stay right here. Questions?
Just one comment. I appreciate your comment about getting families involved. I think that's going to be an important thing. We're talking a lot about that, is making sure we have good engagement throughout the district and making sure families are aligned with what the students are expecting, or student goals. I think that's a positive thing that I heard. Thank you.
Really good, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Who am I getting this to?
Nicole, we're just trying to make sure she gets her orchestra concert.
Yeah. All right.
I'm Tara Piatek. I'm the principal over at Rotolo, and I have Kelly Bennett with me. She's our instructional coach and serves on our SLT, among a million other things that we have her do in our building. So she's here to help present some of our information because she has a huge role in a lot of it. So first, we'll start with our goals. These should look familiar to you because they are the exact same goals that we had last year. Our building set goals that were lofty, and we knew that they were lofty. And we decided that we would set goals that we wanted to reach, not goals that we knew we would reach. And so last year, we made some progress in some of these goals, but we knew that they were still something that our board, or our SLT really wanted to focus on. So our first one is really implementing impactful strategies from our Tier 1 strategies. And then our second one is creating an equitable learning environment for our students, looking at belongingness, engagement, and academic success. And so when we're looking at our metrics and for what we wanted to measure for this, for our fall metrics, we're looking at growth. So I have our spring metrics for growth on there from last year because we don't have growth data yet for fall of this year. We will in the winter, but we don't have it yet. And then we have a mid-year goal of 67% growth and 80% or 60% growth. And then in math, it's 70% and reading 70% by the end of this year. Again, those are still lofty goals. Moving 10% in our growth category is something that is challenging. But our teachers felt that those numbers were numbers that they felt comfortable with as goals for them, whether or not they hit it this year or next year. It's just a number that felt appropriate to them for a growth goal for us. When it comes to equitable learning, we have two things that we're looking at. Panorama data is our first one. Last year, we had Panorama as a metric we kind of looked at, but we didn't measure it in terms of intentional growth because we didn't know how our kids were going to respond to it. We didn't know whether or not we were going to change questions. We wanted to feel it out before we said, this is how we're going to use this information. So now we know that, and we're better equipped to figure out percentages to grow, and we've worked with our Panorama reps to figure out what they recommend. And we are hoping to grow by 2% in our belongingness score for our students, putting us at 74% in the spring. Of course, we would love that number to be higher than that too, but the Panorama reps said that 2% growth is a pretty impressive growth for a school of our size to have over the course of 1 year. So we're doing some Tier 2, Tier 1 interventions, some lesson planning and advisory and Bulldog Block to kind of reach those goals. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in our action steps slide. And then the second thing that we look at is our CHAMPS implementation. So if you remember last year when I talked to you guys about CHAMPS, we were really just looking at that surface level implementation of CHAMPS, the visuals in the classroom, the specific expectations following specific vocabulary. Now we wanted to dig in a little deeper and get into the actual heart of CHAMPS and look at what categories can really improve engagement and learning in the classroom. So we moved on to opportunities to respond. So our goal by the end of this year is to have 14 opportunities to respond within our time that we're observing, which is about a 10-minute observation. We're currently at 11.5, so we have a little bit to go, but our teachers are behind that goal and figuring out ways to make that happen. And we're also taking time in our faculty meetings to look at the different ways that students respond. So 14 opportunities to respond that are all passive isn't engaging for our students. You know, stand up, sit down, get your pencil, put your planner away. Those are opportunities to respond, but they aren't improving our learning. So we want people to really focus on active opportunities to respond rather than just passive. So that makes 14 a decent goal for us because it's harder to do more engaging opportunities to respond. Oop, go ahead.
I'm just going to skip right over.
Yep.
So our action steps are very similar to last year's because they are the same goals, but we're looking at what we did last year and what was successful and then how we could make it even better. So we still have an aligned Bulldog Block, so every 6th, 7th, 8th grade schedule, they have Bulldog Block built in that they have designated time to get support from their teachers, to go ask questions, to do their homework, to get organized. But 10 to 15 minutes of that class period is designated for their own personal growth. So it depends on the team and the grade level, but mostly Mondays and Fridays are designated for just reading. So 10 to 15 minutes that they're choosing their book that they want to read. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, that 10 to 15 minutes is spent with IXL. So it depends on the team. They might do Tuesdays are math and Thursdays are ELA. It might be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are all math 1 week, and then the following week they do reading. But they're spending that time on skills that are skills that that individual student needs to work on. So based on the benchmark that they do in the diagnostic, it gives them the recommended skills that they're working on. So this year, our goal was, what's the motivation for students? That 10 to 15 minutes, they're working independently. 8th grade, they've done it 6th grade and 7th grade. So keeping the kids motivated and wanting to do that. So whether that's goal setting, we've had teachers that do punch cards. So if they get a SMART score of like 75 or to 80 as proficient, they get a punch. And then when they get 5 of them, they get a reward, depending on the teacher. That's different in different classrooms. We've had we've had other teachers try to gamify it, so they do like a leaderboard, so the kids are answering their own questions at their own level, but they're answering the number of questions correct goes on a leaderboard, and they get the bragging rights of being at the top. Or we've had teams that are doing competitions against 2 teachers, so it's a battle, and the percentage of correct questions that each class answers correctly, then they can get their bragging rights for their team. So just getting those ways of getting kids motivated and wanting to answer the questions correctly instead of just flipping through IXL, and finding the best way to use that resource has been really helpful. And teachers have really gotten on board on helping the kids find the success in that. So the building-wide PD, like Tara said, we are looking at faculty meetings now as part of our department meetings. So once a month, we meet as 25 minutes as a faculty. Then we go on to our departments. So that might be a mini lesson in something that we are talking about in CHAMPS, opportunities to respond. It might be something in some of our other goals. It could just be announcements. And then when they go back to their departments, they're using that time to do PD as well. We're all reading SLT and TLs are reading 10 to 25, the book by David Yeager, and looking at motivating students between 10 and 25. And then the SLT and TL members will go back to their teams and their departments and kind of have those conversations. So it's spreading across the building. And then we are continuing CHAMPS. So last year, our goal, like Tara said, was just to have the posters up and all of us using the same vocabulary, all of us instilling the same conversation levels so students could go from class to class and know what CHAMPS meant. Now we're looking at that engagement piece. So we're looking at the level of engagement and how engaged our kids are during a 10-minute class period or more. So we're looking at the number of opportunities to respond, but we're also looking at what types of things are happening in the classroom during direct instruction, during small group instruction that kids are engaged in, and what strategies can we use that works for that group of kids. And let's see if I forgot anything so far.
I don't think so.
All right.
New things.
And then the classroom visit. So last year, teachers started talking about just being in classrooms and how much they learned from watching other teachers teach. And we did we had like informal where you could just go pop into classrooms, but the more structure seemed to be more successful. So last year, just even with CHAMPS walkthroughs and getting TLs and SLT members doing the CHAMPS walkthroughs, we had one of the 8th grade teachers walked through, did a CHAMPS walkthrough, loved what one teacher was doing, a strategy that she had, and then he's like, I'm gonna try that in my lesson tomorrow. So he intentionally figured out how he was gonna put that strategy in, invited all of us in to see it, and was like, hey, tell me what you think of this, and just getting that collaboration and that professional development built into the day was really cool to see. So we tried to make that even better, and this year, starting in January, SLT and TL members will all go visit a 6th grade classroom and then look at what's happening in our school improvement goals. So what do we see that's working in engagement, opportunities to respond. We're gonna get into student discourse, how students are talking to each other. So having them come back to TLs and SLT and talk about what are we seeing in the building that is working. So those classroom visits are really kind of spreading. And then in the new math curriculum, we've been in a ton of classrooms and looking at what teachers have been doing. We've taught classes so that they could go visit other classrooms. The math teachers could go visit other classrooms. And then we've set it up so math teachers during their plan and their PLC could go visit other grade level teachers teaching math. So, and then just having that connection of what's working in classrooms and seeing other teachers teach has been really helpful. So the new things is a lot of those just making it better. And then our goals of using common exit tickets. Math, the new math curriculum has the exit tickets already built in. So our teachers are figuring out the curriculum. So the lessons are long, they're getting to that exit ticket. So they may not be using it to pull small groups within their classes, but they're using it to decide like, okay, this is what didn't work this class period, the kids had a misconception, so I'm gonna do it my next class period. So just using it as an overall whole class, they have to switch directions. And then that will spread, that'll get better, and then we can spread it to other content areas. The student discussion, again, in math, we had our first math walkthrough with our EM squared rep in October, and our goal was to see more student discussion. Our teachers were used to like the kids doing math and not talking as much. So we just had our second math walkthrough this week. And the amount of kids talking math was incredible. They had so much academic vocabulary. It was not new to them. Like we walked in and they would do a turn and talk and the kids were like right on it. They knew what they were supposed to be doing. They were talking a lot of math, a lot of stuff I didn't get in the 8th grade one. So that was really exciting to see that progress of just having the teachers have that goal and they intentionally plan to put in those student discussions. So we'll continue to do more of that, continue to report out the data from IXL and CHAMPS. And then our last one was that belonging piece, to get some formal and informal ways to have that belonging. We had the author visit, Michael Liali. Did I say it right?
Liali, yep.
Liali, who came and spoke to the kids. He had a full day, so I think he interacted with every student in our building. He started before school, met with kids that had book club, talked to them about his book and his personal life. Then he did a presentation in 6th grade. He did a writing workshop with our 7th and 8th graders. He did a question and answer session for anybody who wanted to come. Then he stayed after school to meet with our equality club from the middle school and high school kids and talked about with writing characters with diverse backgrounds and kind of seeing yourself in your own writing. So he had great conversations with our kids throughout the entire day. So that was a great way of belonging. We had, you want to do that one?
We have a bunch of different positive reinforcements that we're trying to do in our building too, just because we feel that shifting our attention to what's going well has been easy for our building, and so it also makes all of us happier when we're there. So we're trying to really focus on like bringing out the good and really talking up the students who are doing positive things rather than focusing on correcting behaviors, and we're seeing a positive shift with that. Our cell phone policy is the same as the board policy, off and away. This is the first year that all 3 grades cannot have their phone at lunch. We cycled that through starting in 6th grade, and now those are 8th graders, so no one has access to their phone at any point during the day. Our discipline process, it starts with very informal reminders and expectations. Bulldogs keep their phones off and away. Everybody remember the expectations, things like that, and then they progress into consequences if needed. This year, our current recorded violations for cell phones are at 5. With a building our size, we're pretty happy with that number. That doesn't mean that kids haven't received reinforcing conversations, but that has not required multiple interventions in more than just 5 of those cases, because the multiple interventions would require us to document it in the way that we're recording violations. So we haven't seen a lot of pushback from our kids because they're just used to it now at this point that it's off and away. Whereas when we were trying to change it for students who used to have it in lunch, to say they couldn't have it in lunch was not fun. So we're finally at a point where it's just the norm to not have it, and it's been going well. That's all we got for you. Yeah.
So do you feel like you've seen a change in lunch?
I think we've seen a change in lunch because of the amount of work that our deans have put into behaviors in the lunchroom. And I think that cell phones being in the lunchroom fed into that behavior. But I think that overall our lunchroom has improved drastically in the last 3 years. So in general, it's a far more positive and controlled environment. Some of that is related to cell phones, but most of it is just related to our deans being diligent and thoughtful about what they're doing in there. So I don't know that it's been like insanely obvious, but it's definitely there.
Comments? Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Should I do?
Okay. I am Kristen Stevens, the principal at Alice Gustafson in the Early Childhood Center, and with me I have,
I'm Jake Wyeth. You saw me a couple weeks ago, so I'm back for different reasons tonight.
all right. So we will start with the early childhood program goals. Those goals this year focus on building those strong early learning habits. The first goal is related to growing pre-literacy skills, so identifying, matching, and sounding out letters, writing letters based on their sounds, and then students are progress monitored based on their individual goals, which makes sense for someone who's 3 or 4 years old to be measured in that way. And then they're also working on answering higher level questions to deepen their thinking. This is the second year they've been working on that goal, and that just really sets students up to be those deeper level learners and be able to comprehend more complex text as they grow. And then finally, the students are practicing those independent daily routines, arrival, dismissal, hand washing, transitions, and all of those experiences are much appreciated when these students transition to kindergarten and are expected to be much more independent.
Okay, we have 2 goals identified in our school improvement plan. The first one is a literacy goal, which you've seen for each school. I like that this year we've decided to focus on increasing the number of students as proficient in ELA. I think that's certainly a goal we have every year as a school. But so we set our goal at 80% of students will score at or above the 50th percentile on ELA MAP. In the fall, we had 79% of our students proficient on that assessment. For our sense of belonging, we used the Panorama survey to create this goal. And the area that was weakest for our students was their ability to persevere through challenges. It was labeled as grit on the assessment. And I think one of the things we found as a staff is just that we have by and large, a fairly successful, high-achieving student population. So a lot of things for them come easily. So when they're presented with challenges, that can be difficult. So the goal we set was that 100% of our students will participate in at least 3 learning activities that require sustained effort, problem solving, and grit. And a lot of those we're doing as a school involve our grade level buddies with younger students and the older students. So it does also bring a sense of belonging aspect to that as well. That's okay. The action steps we have for English language arts, we are going to focus on explicit Tier 2 vocabulary instruction, and the numbers you see next to that are the Hattie's research for impact size of those instructional strategies. Teachers are working on incorporating MAP and IAR style questions into their instruction, student goal setting through the trimester reflection and regular updates on that. We have some teams doing rigor and relevance teaming that are working on student collaboration and student teaming. And then Kristen's been doing some daily SEL strategies in the morning announcements, which are tied into our Portrait of a Graduate lessons to help support students with their perseverance and grit. One thing I was going to point out too, I know J.B. Nelson mentioned the 5th grade team field testing the new English language arts resource. My team is doing the same thing, and one of the things I think is really positive is a lot of these action items I see as regular occurrences in the CKLA materials. So I do think from a system-wide perspective, some of these high-impact strategies are going to be further embedded with potentially with a new resource.
Okay. And then our reflections. One thing we have done this year is delve a little bit deeper into Panorama, especially as the SLT team, but also during our PLC meetings, just really looking at that data and digging deeper into it. So for example, 92% of our students reported that they had a trusted adult at school, which sounds great, but that also then left 8% of our students that said they didn't. And our SLT team decided right away that that's not okay with us. We wanted to really dig in and get more information from those students and connect with those students. So we've action planned already, connecting them with adults and following up with them. Panorama has just been really a good wealth of knowledge for us. And this year, we definitely dug deeper into that. It's helped us just better understand our students. Model of instruction for deeper learning, I've talked about that before. We went and watched Elgin School District do this. It's a cooperative learning model. As Jake said, our students are pretty high achieving, but what we found is they do struggle a little bit to work together cooperatively. And I can think back to college days having a little trouble with that myself. So we're providing them a lot of instruction, and it also gives us the opportunity to do in-the-moment coaching. So, agreeing on one idea can be really challenging for students because my idea is right and Jake thinks his idea is right, and how do we come to a consensus? And it's given us that opportunity to really focus on some of those SEL strategies that we talk about. Our students are really good at telling us what we want to hear in that aspect, but then implementing it is a little trickier for them. And then really listening to our students regarding feedback, and again, for the deeper learning, academic teaming, in speaking to some of the students, there's a facilitator in the group, and their feedback is the facilitator keeps bossing us around. So just because they're facilitating doesn't mean they get to do all the work and boss us around. So good feedback, and we changed some of our instruction based on that, and really, really value that real honest feedback that our students are willing to provide.
And I would say too, I am the sponsor of the student council at our school, and I would say one of the positive things for me is that the student leaders report similar themes to what we see at SLT on Panorama. So the student leaders are often wanting to address some of the same needs of the school as we see on our Panorama survey.
Before you move on, can you go back to the previous slide? Can you explain again what those numbers next to those categories?
Stole my question, so thank you.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Either one of us can. There's a researcher named John Hattie. People, I think, have referenced them maybe before in presentations. And so he looked at how impactful certain learning strategies are for student learning. So the higher the number, obviously, the better the learning.
What is the high? I don't know what the high.
It's above 0.20, I believe. Is good.
So,
Is
but
better.
like 0.48, does that mean that that's, like, what is 0.48 for that rigorous map style questions? What are you trying to?
getting-
He has a
Getting
full
deep.
body of work
Brad.
that reports it from like its lowest impact factor. So it's like almost like an impact factor score, where there's the lowest of all lows. And then he builds on what his research was all the way up to the top, which is where you're heading towards one. Full impact.
So it's like 0 to 1.
Rob, a 0.4 in his scale is like a typical year's growth. So anything above 0.4 would be considered a high-impact strategies. There's different strategies that can be, upwards of 1.2, 1.3, and things like that. They're a little bit more complex than just a classroom instruction strategy. But just to give you like a scale, a 0.4 in his system is like a year's worth of growth, if that makes sense.
And it's a meta-analysis of a bunch of research on these, so it's a combination of lots of people's research on particular instructional strategies, and then looking at all of that data, what's the impact, the average impact of those.
But kind of the net thing that
Correct.
you're trying to impart upon us is that these things are, like
Above
someone
average
study high impactful things to do
Correct.
beyond what you might normally do.
He says that in education, there's not much we can do that's harmful for kids, right? Like, there are a few things, like retention, and,
We try
but
not to do
like,
those.
most things are not gonna do like set kids back in their learning, but there's few things that really accelerate learning. So that's why he sets that at 0.4.
Right.
So he has a million different things that he's analyzed, but only some of them rise above that 0.4 impact level.
And there are other things that are related to this that are high impact, like we set goals, but then giving feedback on the goals so you can continue to improve is a high impact strategy.
Reflection.
Okay.
Okay, and then our cell phone procedure update, very similar to JB Nelson. We really do not have an issue with cell phones. Our students have those turned off and put away. I have never really seen a student pull a cell phone out. However, many of our students do have smartwatches, and as JB Nelson said, that's a lot more challenging to navigate and enforce. And we have had some incidents where parents are sending messages to their students via smartwatch. I've only had one conversation with a student, but that's not to say, I know when our SLT talked about it, many teachers have had conversations with students. We're pretty lucky though, because typically when we do speak to our students about it, they correct the behavior and don't do that again. And then Mr. Modaf sent out a really great message to his parents about the board policy and things, and so I just stole his message and sent it out recently. So I'm anticipating that that'll give us even more community and parent support, and just a reminder. Do you have any questions for us? That Hattie one was very challenging.
I've got one. Can you go back to one of your earlier slides, the one where you had the chart right at the beginning?
Oh, that's the
That, I'm
EC
just trying to
question.
understand the type of questions and what those numbers.
Sure. So the more complex questions are, it's a little more challenging for a 3 and 4-year-old, but thinking of it like from, let's just say, a first grader, you're asking them to explain their thinking or go deeper into the thinking versus like, what was the name of the character? You're asking more like a question, how does their character trait impact them in the story? Or how would the story be different if this character wasn't kind and they were unkind? So it's just asking them to do more complex thinking versus like the surface level type of questions.
And so what are the percentages kind of related
The
to?
percentages are the percent, when the classrooms were observed, there's a consultant that comes in and does observations. That's the percentile of questions that were higher level thinking. So in September, yes or no choice, there were 13% of the questions were yes or no choice questions. Remembering, 40% of them were remembering.
Okay.
So it's a comparison from September of 2025 to the prior year. And it's something they've been working on really hard for a while. And they have a consultant working with them as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
All right, good evening. I'm very excited to be back here to share about Grace McWayne, the school improvement plan and our progress so far in implementation. With me here is SLT member Kelly Woodard. I do want to give her a shout out though. She's not only an SLT member, but she's also an active ELA SALT member and plaque member, so she brings vast amounts of experience both in the classroom and across the district. On this screen, you will see our goals for this year, which, similar to other schools, you're going to see is literacy and sense of belonging. Typically, we focus on comprehension, but when we get into literacy, but this year we want to take more of a whole language approach of looking at oracy and writing, which are some foundational components of literacy that we haven't focused on in the past. We're looking, by doing that, we're looking to improve our vocabulary use, our comprehension, and critical thinking. And the reason we like these areas is because it can be stretched across the entire school day. That's not just in reading, that's in any part of their school day, whether they're PE, art, music, and any of our students can certainly practice and improve in these areas. So we're hoping by doing that, we can move from 55.57 students growing on NWA map reading to, in spring, going to 58% of students. We're also focusing on sense of belonging this year, and as you can see, we do have a superhero theme. You'll hear that a few times tonight. And we're using that theme to focus on Portrait of a Graduate components, and we're hoping by doing that, along with some other engaging pieces with student focus groups and things like that, we're going to move the panorama survey results from 72% of students surveyed responding favorably to 76% of students. Some key action steps include monthly PLC data meetings, and that is to improve the data culture of our building, and with a focus of making sure that we are regularly looking at data. And this is not MAP or IAR data. This is data produced from student outcomes daily in the classroom, and then analyzing that data and using it to change instruction. Professional learning sessions, you heard already that the district had the ICL, the Illinois Comprehensive Literacy Plan components are being focused on this year across the district. We're doing those along with some of the work that our SLT is doing as well. And it's pretty cool because it aligned with our focus of oracy, because one of the focuses of those professional learning sessions was oracy, so we've dug into that deeply. Our goal with oracy is to push towards academic conversation success criteria. So we want to define for teachers first and then students what it is to be successful with academic conversations. Kind of some examples that I can give to you is if you're, a student answering with a complete sentence, citing evidence and reason behind their answers. Students analyzing the answer of another student and responding to them. That's the kind of things we're thinking about when we think about oracy. And with writing, we're looking to align expectations across the building and build some frameworks and instructional goals around IAR. IAR, when we get our results, it does include the standards that we are proficient on and areas that we might need to grow on. So we've been using that the last couple of years to figure out how to improve in different areas, and this year we're focusing on writing. For SEL, we had we're doing monthly student focus groups. In the past, we've done it by trimester, and we're increasing that because we really found that those focus groups help us really guide our school leadership team. I get to sit with those students, and then I bring back that data to the school leadership team so they have a student view of the decisions we're making. As I told you, the superhero poster are bringing our Portrait of a Graduate's components to life. Each month, a grade level picks a component from the Portrait of a Grad and turns it into a superhero, so our younger students can get a better idea of what we mean by communication skills or things like that. School-wide boosts are definitely helping with all of that. That's all tied into our superhero theme. And you'll hear from Kelly a little bit talking about our SEL walkthroughs, which we are focusing on student engagement in kind of a different way this year, and I'll let her talk about that next.
All right, so some reflections. We did get an exemplary designation on the Illinois report card, and we went from 51.6% to 68.4%. And we really attribute that growth to all the professional development that we have been doing around reading instruction. So we've been doing monthly PLC data meetings. So teams are getting together with our instructional coach and Mr. Modaf to work together to identify priority skills and knowledge, and then either choose or create assessments to inform their instruction. Our second grade team has been field testing CKLA in reading and writing, and these meetings have really helped us comb through like what is the most important in the curriculum, and then come together to look through our data to inform our teaching to move forward. Professional learning sessions on the ICLP components. Our reading teacher and our coach have done such a good job of leading professional development on the different components of that. We've really dived deep into the different components, and they've given us really practical things that we can use right away in our classrooms, so that's been exciting. In SLT, we wanted to make sure that our goals that we were setting for SIP were really, that all of our professional development was going to be focusing on what great reading and writing teachers do instead of aligning with a particular curriculum, because we know we're kind of in that weird situation right now. So we really wanted to make sure that it was just what good readers and writers do, what good readers and good reading and writing teachers do. So ORC's been a big one for us, like Jeff said, with the academic conversations and the success criteria. We're in the midst of this right now, actually. We discussed at our school leadership team what we thought some good criteria would be at different grade levels, like K1 band, the 2-3 band, and then the 4-5 band. And at our last staff meeting, we kind of passed those out to everyone. We got in those grade level bands and discussed, you know, like, oh yeah, we agree with this, we don't, like tweak it here. So SLT is going to take that back and look at it, and then, you know, hopefully we can move forward with that. Writing, we're aligning expectations and frameworks and instructional goals to the IAR exemplars. This is something we'll do the second half of the year. We haven't really dove into this yet, but Jeff's already emailed all of the 2nd through 5th grade teachers the IAR exemplars so that we can take a look at them and be prepared for January when we hit that. Our SEL walkthroughs to promote student engagement and connections to academic discourse. We've committed, SLT has committed to record ourselves during a lesson, which was kind of a tough sell at first, but we got it. So we're all going to record ourselves. And then we have a rubric that we're going to use to evaluate ourselves on student engagement and, you know, academic discourse. So we kind of have like a rough rubric. I think we maybe use ChatGPT to put it together, but we're like, let's just use it, see how it goes, and then we can tweak it as we're evaluating ourselves. So, and then after we've all done it, then we're going to come to the staff and be like, okay, we all did it. It's not as scary as we thought it was going to be. And then we're hoping that staff will jump in and try it too. So,
And I want to just say, I also am included in that. I videotaped
Yes, he
myself
did.
teaching. I haven't watched it yet.
I haven't watched mine yet either.
Well, we're going to rip off that Band-Aid and check it out. I'm sure we did fine.
Yeah, I'm sure. All right, and then you've heard in the other presentations about the current practice. Our current practice is aligned to board policy. GMS has had 3 office discipline referrals, but they were all involving smartwatches, because at the elementary level, I mean, maybe 4th and 5th grade, but I don't see phones in 2nd grade, but smartwatches, almost all my kids have the smartwatch on their arm. So conversations with students, Jeff did send out like an email asking teachers, you know, how many conversations, and he said teacher reminders were like 60 plus. I can tell you, I mean, almost daily, I am reminding them to, you know, usually it's the parents texting them. So if it becomes a distraction too much, they just put it in their backpack, and, you know, usually once, I don't know, some of them, it's not them, it is the parents. So, but he kind of sent out like, it's okay to tell them, like, put it in your backpack. So that's just kind of our blanket statement now. If it becomes a distraction, just take it off and put it in your backpack, and then they're fine.
Yep. That's what prompted the email to the parents that
Yeah.
Christine talked about.
They come home without their watch, check their backpack.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right.
Before you bang.
Right. So, any questions? Thanks.
I'm so, we're missing an acronym. What is IAR, please?
Oh.
Oh, Illinois Assessment of Readiness?
Okay,
It's our-
okay.
It's our standardized test that we take once a year.
Gotcha, thank you.
Just to draw connections for the board, when Brad showed you the Illinois report card last month, the one section he went over when it was talking about student growth and accountability, that was the IAR. That's the same IAR.
So,
Sorry, Rob.
Go back. Congratulations on the exemplary designation. Is there any unique strategies? I know you mentioned professional learning, you're attributing that, but anything unique that you've been able to share with your colleagues or some of those efforts? And I think it goes back to, like, for everyone, is like, how are we sharing some of those best practices that we're using?
Yeah, and this actually happened at one of our principals' meetings, where I had a chance to share it out, where two things we did. One was actually getting into the back end of the IAR data to look at what standards our students are most proficient in. It does do that, along with like how many questions are related to that standard. So that is helpful to our teachers, and I shared that with the principals. And then the other one was just using the exemplars to show the level of rigor that is expected within those standards. For example, a fifth grader is expected to write like a 5-paragraph essay. It's well organized with transition words, and that's just helpful for students to see. And then teachers use that to kind of teach toward. Here's an example of where I want you to be by the end of the year. Here's how we're going to work toward it. So those ideas were shared last year at a principal's meeting.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. HC Storm over here. Chris Milka, I got Lauren Gallardini, 5th grade teacher and SLT member. I am just going to apologize in advance because I do talk quickly, so get ready. Here are our goals that we got. Although we have lots of goal areas that we are focusing on for our school improvement plan, we are purposely going to be looking at ELA proficiency and growth, which is lined up to our strategic plan priority 1. If you look, those are our starting metrics that we have over there. The red is actually last year's spring scores, so that was kind of what we built everything off of, and then we got our fall data that we added in over there as well. For our priority 2, we got sense of belonging, but we are actually going to focus it on those 3 areas. I don't know if you can read it, but the specific wording for those 3 questions are down over there. But we definitely want to look to see if our staff or our students have a supportive adult at school, feel supported by those adults, and have a sense of belonging. So when we look at that, some of our key action steps, we are going to continue on our journey with the high-yield instructional strategies, and I'm glad that you asked Kristen that question about Hattie and the different types of meta-analysis scores, so check that one off, so I appreciate you that. We also have our PD, just like all the other elementary schools, focusing on the ICLP, and we're going to be very purposeful with our ELA instruction. And we're going to revamp our instructional rounds because since we're putting so much PD into this, we want to empower our teachers to go into other classrooms in order to be able to see the implementation of the ICLP. Our SLT is utilizing the street data book. So we want to kind of avoid some of those biases in our conversations and getting caught in those equity traps and tropes, such as that deficit mindset or, hey, we're shifting blame. We really want to look at the data in order to be able to kind of move forward. And part of that, we actually did a focus group for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students, focusing on student-to-student respect. And from that, we want to empower their voices to find out what does that mean, what does it sound like, what does it look like, where does it occur, and what solutions do you have to help us as adults be able to address those areas that you guys have identified. So we got students included in decision-making. We're going to continue to go with our clear academic expectations and responsive Tier 1 SEL focus with CHAMPS, Portrait of a Graduate. We have 4 out of the 6th grade levels doing second step, and then we are actually diving into Panorama Playbook a little bit more. They actually have research-based lessons and activities, so based upon the data, we actually will give those over to teachers so they can actually implement in part of their classroom. We also have in-the-moment coaching. What that means is I go out and I referee football and wiffle ball for certain grade levels. But before I go to referee, we actually brought all the students in and we actually had a lunch bunch just to kind of come up with common goals, kind of classroom agreements of what does sportsmanship look like. Okay, now I'm going to go out there and I'm going to hold you accountable because this is what you said. I have it on paper. You broke this rule. You agree. And then that actually helps on out. And then we go over the rules. So it works out pretty well. We're going to continue with our supportive relationships and our classroom buddies, partnering with our PTO. We got very highly attended events, which is great. And then we are also doing a literacy night, which all of you guys are invited to come into. That will be actually February 12th. So I believe you guys got a calendar invite, so we'd love to see you. It is based in alignment with the Winter Olympics, so we're calling it the Reading Olympics, aligned with all of the 6 competencies. Actually, there's 5 competencies in that sense of belonging in Panorama. So that will be our focus for those 6 weeks. And then we're going to go proactive attendance and nurse visits. We looked at this in BLIT. Is BLIT on your sheet? Nope. That would be
Add it
building
to the
level
list.
intervention team. So building level intervention team. So that's like kind of our tier 2, tier 3 team.
Said it.
So we look at different types of things, and we saw some of our students, a group of them actually had more frequent nurse visits, so we actually had proactive communication with the teachers as well as parents. And of the ones that we noticed, every single one improved after we had those proactive communications. One still kind of struggling, but we'll get there. And then also looking at our attendance, we did a deeper data dive into everything, and we found out that at our Illinois school report card, our Hispanic and Latino population was at 12.33% chronic absent, which we're like, okay, we don't know which metrics they use. So we did a historical data dive, and from 2016 to the current school year, they actually have that population has a 94.25% attendance. So I don't know where the disparity is compared to the scores that were reported in the report card to what we have in our data point systems. And even more currently, well, actually, going back to the historical aspect, over the last 3 years, we've had a 2% increase of our Hispanic and Latino population coming to school more regularly, which is absolutely fantastic. And our current data is actually showing that we have 54 students that are at 95% or higher attending, 15 students that are at that 90 to 94.9% attendance, and then we only have 5 students that are falling between 75 to 89.9%. So it looks like some of our proactive communications are actually having a positive impact, not only for that subgroup, but for all of our population thus far. So hopefully we can continue that and go from there, and that brings us over to our reflections.
You know why.
You don't have to talk.
My staff love me in the morning. On Thursday mornings,
Super fast,
they
super
love
efficient.
it. Yes, maximize the time that we have together.
Some of our reflections, one of them is that we want to support all of our students, and especially those students that are in the 90th percentile and higher, because they need our support as well as everybody else. We did find that our math scores are continuing to be consistently high, and we've been doing professional development as a staff, and we've gotten outside of the district through the regional office and attended workshops on that. One of the things that we did find were that some of our subgroup populations scored lower on the overall sense of belonging and SEL competencies. So we're working, like Chris said, with those peer groups. And I happened to sit in on one of those, and it's very interesting to get the perspective of a 10 or 11-year-old and what you think you're doing that is right for them. And then you sit across from the table and they tell you, yeah, you got it all wrong. So it's been very eye-opening and very satisfying to meet with those students. And then as far as the discipline referrals, we've been working on skill implementation and replacements, making sure that there's student-to-student respect, and strengthening those relationships with their peers. This year, or this school year, we've had 30 referrals, and out of those 30 referrals, 17 are the same students. And that's about 5% of our population. So there's been multiple infractions within the same students, but we've been able to decrease those with all 12. We have one little guy that is a repeat offender, but we're working on making him be more successful.
Studies show it takes 8 times to have that conversation, so we're only at number 6. We'll get there.
As far as the cell phone procedures, like everybody at the elementary level has pretty much said, it doesn't really, we don't really see cell phones. Every once in a while, you'll hear one go off in a backpack, and the kids are mortified that they have to go out and turn it off or silence it. It's more of the smartwatches. We did have 2 parent notifications, and they were in favor once they understood the guidelines, and Chris had the conversation with them. And one of the things that we have found is that parents were showing up at our building to pick their kids up, and we had no idea, because there had been no phone calls, the students hadn't gone to the office or the nurse's office. They had used their smartwatch and said, I'm not feeling good, you need to come pick me up. And so that could be an issue.
Just a little. But that's all that we got. Any questions?
Thank you.
Wonderful.
I thought someone else was doing the clicker. Oh, I'm doing the clicker. All right. Hi, I'm Sean Degman, principal of Hoover Wood, and with me is Jill Robinson, our instructional coach. Hi. Our 2 goals, one is for literacy and then one is for sense of belonging. Our literacy goal is for us to increase by 2%, 61% of our students meeting or exceeding their math growth target in reading, moving that up from 59% from last year. We don't have a mid-year update yet because we've only taken MAP once, so we're maintaining our final goal of 61%. And then our sense of belonging, we were at 70% at the end of last year. Last year in the fall, we were at 79%, and then it dropped to 70% after the course of the year. So we decided we wanted to maintain that 70% this year, which we hit in the fall at 70%. I'm hopeful when we take it in the winter that it's going to hopefully go up. But we decided maintaining it would be a good course of action for right now.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a quick minute about the literacy action steps we have. And this will be a repeat on some of the things you've heard tonight with the other elementary schools. Last year, we started an initiative of student collaboration and getting the students to work together more often across their day, so in any setting, not just the general classroom. So we're continuing this for year 2. That initiative came out of our instructional rounds. We had a consultant coming in, and that's how that came to be at Hoover Wood. So we're going to continue with that this year. I've been working with teams, with all grade level teams, weekly team meetings to support that work. We talk about collaboration, how to support the kids in the classroom and working together. So just doing that teaming, AGS talked a little bit about that teaming work. So they're having good conversations and building their critical thinking skills. They're learning to problem solve and not relying on the adult as much. Meanwhile, the teacher is filtering through the classroom and being more of a coach. That's kind of their role instead of being the problem solver. So we're just continuing that journey this year. And we're also digging into the ICLP as well as the other buildings are doing. So the instructional coach and the reading specialist in Hoover are also giving staff professional development to learn about these components to the ICLP, and we are embedding those, or we're going to be embedding those into the DLE ELA instruction and supporting teachers around that work. Very similar to the others.
And then for our belonging action steps, all of our students participate in a buddy reading program, which is across grade levels, which helps them with their oracy and their oral reading fluency. We also have Wellness Wednesdays, which are designed to foster self-care and emotional management, and those are created by our 2 social workers that are given out to the staff. We do our morning meetings to foster their classroom community, but something I've been adding this year is I do video announcements every morning. And then within the video announcements, I embed videos that go along with our Portrait of a Graduate themes, different videos throughout the week. And then those lead into discussions for the morning meetings for teachers to try and have like more of a connection across multiple mediums. Staff also will submit digital Howie's Heroes and care sheets. Care sheets have been at Hoover Wood before I got there, but they were paper pencil. I digitized them this year to help me better track data and to reach kids quicker. And then Howie's Heroes is something I brought from my previous school. It's essentially a positive reward system. It's also digital. So if a kid goes above and beyond, teachers can submit it digitally to me, and then I share it out with the staff and the parents. And then that's also looped into our video announcements because certain kids will then win award. We pulled out a raffle prizes for being a Howie's Hero. Something we're doing this year too that will be happening soon in the second and third trimester is I'm meeting with student council executive groups plus Howie's Heroes award winners and kids that also were receiving care sheets. In the past, it had only been student council exec members that met with the staff. But I wanted to loop in those kids that are getting those Howie's Heroes because those are kids maybe that aren't necessarily your extroverts, but they're doing things to go above and beyond. I want to get their input, and then the students that are receiving those care sheets, those are the kids that maybe feel like school isn't designed for them or school isn't set up for them to succeed. So those are the kids also I want to hear from them too, and I want all those kids having discussions together so that we could have a school that's right for everyone. And then the last one I have is we implemented Degman Drops. That's something also that I brought with me. It's a digital Google form that all second through fifth graders have access to that they can send me messages whenever they want. I probably get sometimes too many, but like I got 3 today, but I get notified right away. So I was able. One kid was having trouble in music. I went to music and talked with him. Another kid was having an issue with someone from recess, so I was able to pull both of them. Just gives them a way to get to me quicker instead of having it make it through its way through the grapevine. Or a lot of kids use it. A lot of kids use it proactively to like let me know when things are starting to happen, so that I could come in and help intervene. So our reflection, you're going to do the top ones. You go.
Don't steal mine.
Yeah.
So our reflections, academically, we're going to continue the ongoing collaboration so that we can keep engaging in those good conversations with the students, helping them to continue that good teamwork and just really empower them with their own skills so that they can be their best learner and, again, not rely on the adults to have all the answers, which they think we have. We really don't. So we really want to empower them with their own skills, and they really are on their way. They can do it. And then we're going to continue that deepening of our understanding of those core components so that we can all be good teachers of reading.
Some other reflections, the use of the digital Howie's Heroes has helped with our positive referrals. We are going to hit 100 of them before winter break, which is awesome. And then it's just one of those things where it's like the more people do it, the more often they do it, the more that I push it out and talk about kids earning them, the more people are like, oh yeah, I should give these out. So that's 100 different times that I've been able to reach out to parents about positive things that their kids have done at school. And then creating the digital versions of the care sheets has helped me because now everything's tracked through a spreadsheet that lets me know what locations are incidents happening, what grade levels, what types of negative interactions are happening. So then I know what to target, whether in my video announcements or reteaching groups with kids. It makes my work more targeted and more meaningful than just doing broad tier 1 behavior management. And then the video announcements and the Degman Drops have helped foster a sense of belonging at the school. All the kids get to see the same announcements every day, so everyone's getting the same message. Kids are involved. There's lots of kids' videos in there. I put pictures of kids in there. When kids are doing cool things, it gets added to there. And the Degman Drop, again, it gives kids, they feel like they have direct, well, it's because they do, but they have direct access to me. And that they see that I follow up on it. And I don't just let it sit there for a week. I either get back to them through Google Classroom, or I get back to them in person, or sometimes I'll reach out to their teacher and just copy and paste and be like, hey, I think this is something you maybe should look into, and let the kids know that their teacher is handling it. But that's just a few of the ways that I feel like we're working on having kids feel like they belong. All right. Cell phones, again, we're not seeing the actual cell phone usage at all, but we are seeing the smartwatches. I haven't, no one has come down to my office about it, but I do know that it's in each classroom there's talks of like put your watch away, or there's no texting on your watches, things like that. So it's definitely happening, but we haven't had anyone that's done anything that's required coming down to the office for it. All right, any questions?
Could you explain the care sheets? Like, what is the
Yeah, so a
process?
care sheet, so that's for like if a student teachers do it different ways. Sometimes kids get like 5 chances in class to be corrected, and then if they still do, are shouting out or not doing their work, then a teacher can submit a digital care sheet about what happened to me, and then it gets sent to me. And then I'm able to, if a kid gets 3 of them, then I talk to them, hey, like, we're seeing a trend going on, like, what's going on in class? And then I can reach out to their parents and talk to them about it too. So it's just a way, a lot of times, a lot of minor things happen with students. And it kind of goes unchecked or unnoticed, and then it kind of builds up to bigger things. So this is a way to be more proactive and get it when it's smaller. And then a nice thing is it used to be paper pencil. So like if you were a classroom teacher and you wrote a care sheet to someone, then I'm the music teacher and I wrote one to someone, those don't ever intersect. But now that they all do it digitally, I can see, oh man, this kid's having a rough day. He got a care sheet in music and he got one in recess and then he just got one in math this afternoon. Like I should probably pull him down and see what's going on. Or she. They get them sometimes too. And see what's going on. So that's what a care sheet is.
And from the teacher perspective, I think that's been the best feedback is that it's lessened the time in transition when a teacher goes to pick up from a special and there's not a lot of time, so then they don't have to communicate that right then or lunch, and a lot of times they didn't know that was all happening throughout the day, so it is a nice streamlined system now, so that the teacher's aware, oh gosh, well, it's not just happening, and the parents too, it's not just happening in one setting, or it's not just the classroom, it's actually this kiddo's having trouble, this kiddo's struggling throughout the day, and that's important to know, so we can get support to that child.
You're back, and I'm sorry if I missed it, but did you say the sense of belonging went down from 79 to 70?
Yes.
What are you attributing that to?
Well, I wasn't there.
So it's all going up.
Yeah. So we can only go up from here. So I don't know. Again, I wasn't there. From what I see, I mean, I feel like students feel like they belong at the school. I'm trying my best to put in initiatives and do things where the kids feel like they're heard and they're seen, and that they're valued at the school. So I'm hoping when we take it this coming winter after winter break that we see numbers higher than 70.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Good evening. My name is Erin Colhagen. I'm a first grade teacher at Louise White School and a member of the school leadership team, and I'm here with my principal, Mike Wall, to tell you about our SIP. We, like all of the other schools, have a literacy goal and a sense of belonging goal. Our literacy one is we want overall growth. 60% of our students will meet or exceed on their MAP, and our final goal is that they will to stay with that. Our sense of belonging is on peer relationships. We want to improve our end of year score by 10%, and looking at we've based this data on last year's, and starting with this year, we're already at a plus 3% improvement, so we only have to grow 7 more. So we're heading in the right direction.
Perfect. There are a lot of words on this slide. I'm going to read them all to you right now. No, I'm just kidding. So I'll just highlight some things and leave you wanting more. And then if there's questions, you can always ask. So within literacy, we kind of broke it down for kind of the major action items that we're doing. And then for each one of those, what sub-steps are we doing to make that happen? How are we measuring each one of those actions? And then what's our goal in each one of these areas to say, like, we're in control of each piece of this, and how will we know that we're going to be successful in these things? So one is our continued PLC work. This is where our staff is self-evaluating in their professional learning communities. We, as SLT, came up with what does a perfect PLC look like, and then made a rubric and backwards mapped, and teams are working on that. As you've heard from other schools as well, learning intentions and success criteria is an ongoing point that we're working to improve on. So that is kids knowing what they're learning and how they're going to demonstrate their learning for the teacher by the end of a lesson. So moving from task completion to learning focused. ICLP practices, Illinois Comprehensive Literacy Plan, you heard about that from other schools, that it's also happening at Louise White. For SEL, focusing on a few areas of how we're going to increase the peer relationships and how positive they are is one, explicit peer conflict resolution training. So this is kind of a 3-step process. So one is the low-level behaviors, and stop, walk, talk is the strategy, where if someone's bothering you, you first make sure to tell them to stop. Anyone that spent time around kindergartners knows that that's a key step. Many times children won't tell the other child to stop, but they will feel distressed and want to talk to an adult. So step 1, tell the other person to stop. Step 2, if that doesn't work, walk away or get some distance from the other person. And step 3 is talk to an adult. And so teaching some kids some independent problem solving for low-level behaviors. And then the other 2 things on there is step and peace path, or other levels of behavior and problem solving. The step process is reflection on what happened and thinking about the options that you had as a person and which option is going to have the best outcome for you. And so that's kind of how we think of that as adults and helping students to think of that. And then the peace path is coming out in the spring, where we'll spray paint on our playground the steps to peace, where when kids have a conflict, they can work through each step in order to resolve those things outside. One of the bigger things we're doing is colonies. We're the prairie dogs, of course, as you all know. Prairie dogs live in colonies. So colonies is what we call this arrangement, where we have intergrade level groups. So like 2 kindergartners, 2 first graders, up through 5th grade. We've met now twice where we've gotten together, and in those colonies then we're focused on whatever our SEL focus for the month is, or the learning piece on there. So we've done one on community and one on empathy. And so students report that's great. And what's really awesome is teacher buy-in on that. I wanted all the teachers to talk me out of it because there's so much work and there's so many potential issues with schedules and all the things that can happen. But everyone's really committed to it, and the feedback from kids is they wish that we did it more often. And then finally, Family SEL Connections. So this is, we have a monthly focus each month, and so sending home tools or conversation starters for families to use, so that those conversations can continue at home and we can partner together. So what we've done already, I probably said a lot of this already, but is for PLC, we've created the rubric, teams have self-assessed, and each grade level team has set their own goals for themselves for the year and are identifying professional development or other steps to improving. For learning intentions, we've set clear expectations of what minimum best practice looks like for that, and then had our school leadership team, SLT, I bet that's on your sheet, our school leadership team lead some professional development on that for the rest of our staff, giving examples and problem solving. ICLP, as you heard about, our coaches are leading, and reading specialists are reading those professional development sessions. For conflict resolution training, again, we've done the first 2, have talked about that as a school. One good thing, I was talking with a parent, and they're like, well, we've told them to stop, walk, talk, and it's like, so parents using that same language, and I use that language at home with my boys, with mixed results. I'm more effective at school than at home, but for colonies, then we've met twice, and we're planning on meeting 4 more times this year, kind of every other month, and we'll see how that's going. And the bigger picture there for sense of belonging is that the colonies then, depending on our feedback as we keep going, but that those would continue year on year. So then it'll be the same group of kids meeting together, and then when the 5th graders leave, they will move on. Our 4th graders then will become leaders, and then they'll add a few new kindergartners, and that way they're deepening relationships with the same students across grade levels over years, and with a different adult in most cases. So we'll see where that goes.
You forgot the exclamation mark by colonies.
Oh, sorry. I've made a typo. Usually, every time I say colonies, I put an exclamation mark, and Ms. Colhagen was pointing out my flaw right now. Thank you, Ms. Colhagen.
Okay. I'm kidding.
And then Family SEL Connections, then we've been sending those home with our different focus areas. For cell phones, as you've heard, not as much of an issue here. We've had no office referrals. I've had 1 conversation with a student, and I've had 2 conversations with parents about dogs on school property for context of what issues come up. So,
It's me. Both of the dogs.
all right, any questions?
Thank you.
have to have that exclamation mark.
That's hilarious.
Okay. She's not excited about him anymore.
Didn't want to do them in the first place.
I feel like following up on a really good comedian. When you're the next person to go, you're like, oh. So thanks, Mike. Joanne Smith, principal at Batavia High School.
I'm Kim Perlman. I teach junior and senior English and speech, and I'm on SLT and CAC.
And Scholastic Bowl, and, okay, we'll stop there. So for our goals, we really just took the board goals that you adopted as our goals for our building. We're a little different at a high school versus maybe an elementary school where we don't all teach literacy. I mean, obviously incorporate literacy in all our day, but so we do have different goals. Our goals are proficiency goals. So that means is if you look there, for example, the starting metric is our ACT scores from last spring. That would be our current seniors. And then our goal at the last column, the column on the right, would be our current juniors taking the ACT in the spring. So last spring, for example, our current seniors, 60% of them met the college readiness benchmark for ELA. Your goal that you set for us was 55%. So our ELA teachers bashed that goal last year, so they did an amazing job. And our math also met our goal, but obviously we're increasing that for next year to 50%. And then finally, like everyone else, we have a sense of belonging goal that's being measured by Panorama. Last spring, 64% of our students reported having a sense of belonging. This past fall, just our current group, 70%, and our goal set by the board is 67% in the spring. We're really excited about that number. It's, I think our SLT looked at that number at first and was a little bit disheartened that only 67% of our students feel that way, but it does put us in the 90th percentile of all high schools that take this assessment. But obviously, as an SLT, we said we still have to address that 30-some% of students that are not reporting that sense of belonging. But we feel like we're in a good spot. We just want to keep getting better.
Okay, so what our key action steps are, first for ACT preparation, professional learning communities, all of our professional learning communities, all the grade level ones are working with our curriculum. ACT, yes, is a test and is what we're measured by, but that's not the only thing. Our curriculum is our skills, and our curriculum and our skills are aligned with the ACT. So all of us are working to improve what we're doing and working on sound strategies. We are currently implementing the Mastery Prep program. That is our new ACT platform, and that is for 9th through 11th grade. I'm working with it right now with the 11th grade. It will provide support and consistent college readiness development. The one thing with the ACT is it's changed. It's now the enhanced test, which means it is shorter test, fewer questions, longer question time, but the other thing it does is it adapts based on their answers. So the program does that as well. So I'm currently working with that. Students take a pre-test, and then the program determines individualized lessons. It has like video micro lessons. There are assorted platforms, there are bell ringers, there is a ton of information. Right now, it's kind of like we asked for a glass of water and you sprayed us with a water hose. But we're working on it, and we're figuring out, and the kids are responding well. And then the last thing is that we're also having high-impact instructional strategies that we're working with. There's like 8 of them that the PLCs are all meeting and working with, and like, for example, questioning, feedback, formative assessments. So we're continually working with those. And then, of course, sense of belonging. The key building teams are working with sense of belonging. They're using data to identify and support students who have specific needs, whether that's attendance, SEL and well-being, targeted interventions, so like BLIT in the houses. But the school leadership team, we're also working with that as well. So we're examining the disparities. We decided to focus on the disparities with low-income student data, and we're emphasizing on their extracurricular participation as potentially a driver for engagement and belonging. Each of us have a cohort that we are meeting with to take care of with that. But one of the things we're also doing that we have kind of found out is that we're also continuing to use those equity trap cards to kind of make sure that what we're what we think we're seeing is actually what we're seeing, and we're not making assumptions. And then when it comes to the reflections, ACT, this is an evolving assessment, which means it is evolving continually in our class. And like, for example, the mastery prep, there's going to be a learning curve. The nice thing is that being on a block schedule, we get to try it first semester, and then we get to tweak it and work with it next semester and continue to change. It's also something that students will be able to work with at home, if they work with it at home. But it's something that they won't just stop access with once they leave our English, math, or science classroom. So the materials and the availability are there for all, which is an important thing. And then the sense of belonging, we're really taking a look at the 4 questions that impact students, and those questions being, how much support do the adults at school give you? When you're at school, how much do you feel like you really belong there? How well do people understand the kind of person you are? And then also, how much respect do students at the school have for you? So it's kind of a full circle thing with student, school, student, teacher, and staff, and one another.
Okay. Our cell phone story is a bit different. So, you know,
Oh, I can get that.
we have off and away. That is our policy, and we follow the board policy around off and away. I put a couple pictures up there. So we do have a flexible way that teachers can implement off and away. And this came through feedback from our BEA leaders, also from other high schools. I meet regularly with other high school principals in the area, and everyone's trying different things, right? And so got some advice around having like a one-size-fits-all approach that wasn't maybe as helpful. One thing you have to remember is 25% of our students are 18 years old. So it's a different world. We're in a different world. But those pictures are a couple of options that we have. One is the cell phone pockets. One is like more of a caddy situation. Many teachers are using the pockets. So as students walk in, they pop the cell phone in the pocket and they sit down, and that's how teachers take attendance. Every student has the number that's assigned to them. Teachers are getting really creative, assigning groups using those numbers and all kinds of things. But that is kind of those are kind of a couple of ways. Other teachers prefer just, it's in your backpack. It's in your backpack, and if I see it, then it goes in the pocket. You know, so there's some different approaches to how people are using it. When we talked at SLT, the frustration isn't necessarily over the policy. The policy's off and away. That's very clear. I think what the frustration might have been is the inconsistent application of the policy from staff member to staff member. So that's where we're at, and that's always a little bit tricky situation because we don't want to ever pit staff members against staff members or, that kind of thing. So we're continuing to work through that. We are seeing more and more teachers using the pockets, especially for teachers who have freshmen and sophomore students. It seems like, maybe we're taking a slightly differentiated approach as kids get a little bit older. And then as we get our freshmen next year who were at middle school, who've never had a cell phone, that's also a different approach that we can look at too. But we have 66 electronics violations this year from 10 different staff members. Any questions?
Questions?
On the ACTs, are we doing any kind of a, student population demographic analysis or breakdown on that?
Yes.
And are we adjusting our strategies accordingly?
Yeah, I think that was one of the, we always look at all of our data. We always disaggregate our data based on a lot of factors. For example, students with IEPs, students who are low income, all kinds of different demographic factors that we look at. I think that was a big reason why we brought on Mastery Prep. We know students who have a little bit more privilege may be taking part in ACT prep programs in the evening, tutoring, you name it. It may not have access to a program such as Mastery Prep because of just maybe lack of funds, lack of support. So this Mastery Prep program is an individualized approach. That's just one example of how, we're trying to fill in some of those gaps. And then obviously in our classroom, our teachers are looking at those pre-assessment scores, where are students scoring on those pre-assessments, and then differentiating their instruction in class to meet the needs of those kids in class. So we have science, math, and ELA using the Mastery Prep.
And as we work with the mastery, like I said, we're learning the mastery prep program right along with the kids. Integration was very, very easy, but how to learn it, how to work with it, and how to use it, because we're getting a lot of data from that. So, learning to use the additional resources, because there are lessons that we can do. There are videos, there's actually videos that the kids can listen to that mine have been incorporating today. I just had a 5-minute discussion with a kid about the use of the word scarce and why that was the right word to use, okay? So I think as we use the program more and we get more familiar with it and kind of learn the benefits, the ins and outs of it, it becomes a more effective tool.
Yeah.
Mhm.
One of the things I really, my kids went through school. I can't sing the praises of the block schedule and stuff enough really about it. But one of the challenges from my perspective always is like the test is here and they take the classes here and there's a whole semester in between.
Right.
So I presume that kind of mastery prep allows that
Yes.
flattening a bit, that they can do refreshers or they can keep building on that. Or if they're choosing different classes at different times over the year, they may have a whole year where they're not doing a math because they already got all their math or whatever done.
Right.
That they need to in that time frame. So that's really interesting. I kind of really like that idea.
Well, I know that when we started it, I sent a letter out to all my parents
Good,
saying,
okay.
hey, this is what's going on, this is what we're doing, it's available. It's available at home, and it will be available when they're done. And I know the kids will be thrilled,
Yes.
because when we're done at the end of the semester, I'll be sending home another note, and I'll send a note in April, like getting up, say, just, hey, don't forget that it's there. So it's there, it's available. So that's what I like, is that it's available for all the kids to be able to use. So it's also teaching them a little bit of responsibility as well, that it's not just us saying you need to do your 20 minutes. It's you have to do it on the other end.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for all the time and effort you guys all put into that. It's really amazing. I mean, me personally, I kind of love hearing the little themes that are kind of going through it. Not only like, okay, elementary school, it's not about the phones, it's the watches, and if we could control the parents, maybe that would cause half the problems to go away, that kind of thing. But just it's really kind of one for me to kind of see the passion and the focus. And I know sometimes there's a lot of data you guys all have to focus on and learn to draw from, and sometimes that seems to be probably a challenge too when you got to do the rest of your day job as well. So thank you for the time and effort on that. Anything anybody else wants to add overall?
Just thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
I did want to offer an opportunity for Kristen to share a little bit about what she learned with some of the renorming of our assessments and our report card. It's applicable to the conversation we're hearing tonight, but it's also going to be a nice little lead into what we'll do Tuesday night as well with our district level presentation. Kristen, do you want to share some takeaways?
Sure. So I watched an IASB webinar called New Standards for Student Proficiency, What Board Members Should Know. I found it really helpful. There's a recording on it on the IASB website if anyone wants to check it out. So the state has changed their proficiency benchmarks. So the whole webinar was about how we can't just look at those benchmarks now because they've changed. So federal law requires that states adopt standards and assess student performance, but states can kind of do that how they see fit. And so Illinois has decided to change those benchmarks. So if we are just looking at benchmarks, we're not going to really get an accurate idea of student growth. So they suggest, and I think this is something that we generally do, is looking at growth percentages. He gave an example of, like, if you go to the pediatrician and your child, they show you the growth chart, And some kids are maybe in the 5th percentile, some are in the 90th percentile, but what we're really looking at is, do they continue to grow? And so looking at kids and if they're growing is more important than looking at if they're hitting these benchmarks, which can vary from year to year. And to close gaps, then you have to accelerate those benchmarks. So if a kid's at 50th percentile and they stay at 50th percentile, they're still growing, but to close gaps, then you want them to see like, okay, now they're at 55th percentile, 60th percentile. So I found it very interesting and helpful for me, especially as a new board member, to always be looking at student growth and not necessarily those benchmarks.
And I appreciate you sharing that because kind of goes back to that saying I think I've said in some recent meetings is I'm not worried about the end game of the score of the end of the game. I'm worried about, are we taking each play, getting better at what we do? Are we doing things the right way? Are we focused on that growth aspect? Because then I believe the scoreboard just takes care of itself. You know, if we're an organization that's focused on growth for our students, focused for growth on our teaching practices, our leadership practices, everything we do, you know, from top to bottom, from board all the way down, and from all the way down, all the way up, right? Like, and so that's why, Christian, I really appreciated you spending time looking at that and then sharing some of your reflections, and so I wanted to give you that space here for that. And that'll tie in really well to the presentation we'll do on Tuesday evening, as we do the final like mid-year check-in with the district level information. We're gonna see there's been tremendous areas of growth we're very proud of. There's areas that are indicators that we need to have some concentration on. And I think that's really important, and it's all really well aligned to our strategic plan. And I think that's the critical piece of it. We're able to really focus in on what resources we need to dedicate towards addressing those areas and also supporting areas where we have momentum. That's all we have.
Thank you. All
That's
right.
it for tonight.
Well, then item 40.1, as a reminder, we're moving that to the meeting on the 16th. And unless there's any other board comments, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I just want to say
Yep,
thank
nope.
you too, and also thank you for taking the extra time with the cell phone update.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thanks, everybody. That's why I said any other comments. All right. Entertaining the motion still floating out there if someone would like to.
So moved. So moved.
All right, moved by Katie, second by Kristen. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None of you want to oppose? No? Okay. All right, it is now 8:42 PM and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, guys. Yeah, was there an over under on 9 o'clock?